There's this.
Awesome. We're in. We're in like Flynn. We did it even during Mercury retrograde.
Yay, Anna's
I
here
know,
too.
right?
I know.
Yay, Val's here.
Ellen, Anna, yay.
No, what are you doing?
I don't know how to get my.
I am so plugged in.
I don't know how do I become visible?
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, Mercury retrograde. I
Yes.
don't know, Lovey. Anna, I don't know. I don't have a way to send you.
Yeah, I'm not at my place. So I've hooked up, I've signed into somebody else's thing, but why is the video not there? Oh well.
Mercury's retrograde.
Hello, ladies.
Hi, I'm so glad everybody's here for Training Tuesday. I was just gonna say it's one of my favorite times, even when technology is being affected by Mercury retrograde, which is fine. I'm gonna let you guys sort it out. Maybe you can use a little chat action. I'm just gonna get us started here so that we don't lose anybody in the first 4 minutes of the replay. Welcome everybody to Tuesday Training. So happy to be here. This is our wrap up for this month on joint action. We're gonna talk about more shoulder work today, specifically shoulder rotation. So if you are interested in that, this is your day for sure. And if you've not been here before, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. We are going to talk about shoulder rotation for both movement and manual practitioners and how it can support you in creating a really effective treatment plan and getting rid of pain. That's what we're up to here. That's what I'm up to here. That's what I'm up to every week to serve you, support you, pour into you. Definitely ask questions as we go. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions on this one just because shoulder rotation tends to bring up some questions. And if you were like me, I used to be a little freaked out by shoulder actions because I don't know, it's just like a lot going on, but we've got it. Totally going to get there today together. You're going to, I hope, walk away with something really valuable, and we're here for it. You guys ready?
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Bill's like, sure, I'm in. I love it, Bill. So this is Murph, our assistant. He's going to be working through some shoulder rotation with us today. And if you happen to be watching on the replay, please feel free to leave some comments below or even ask some questions below if you have them that weren't covered. We'd love to hear from you. And also, what kind of work do you do? So movement or manual practitioners. I happen to know personally all the fabulous practitioners here with us today. So I know what y'all are up to. We have movement and manual practitioners in the house, massage therapists, yogis, Thai massage. I think we have a personal trainer coming today as well. Who knows? We're all welcome. We're all in the same body of information, which is how's the body designed and how do I, as the practitioner, return the body back to its design so there's no pain. That's the key. If we know the design and we know how to return them back to their design, then there is no pain. Anna, you look like an angel. You're like completely white. Oh, and there she is. Figured out her tech. I love it. Okay, good job. All right, my love. Here we go. First off, we have been talking for several weeks about joint action. And how would you all reframe the importance or significance in knowing joint action, whether you are a manual or movement practitioner? Like I said, everybody here is a mixture of both manual and movement. And my intention is to really land this idea that whether or not you're a movement or manual practitioner, the same information about functional anatomy applies to you in the work that you do. So over to you all. How would you, in a sentence or two, how would you describe the significance of knowing joint action and its significance to the work that you do? Like, why do we need to know joint action? Why do you need to know joint action? How has knowing joint action changed the work that you do or your results?
If you don't know how it functions, how are you going to help fix it? Help come back to normalcy.
Great.
Joint action informs the muscles that are responsible for that joint action. And so it's about really understanding which muscle is supposed to be doing the work, and which one is, lengthening on the other side. But if you don't understand, I mean, how do you, manual or movement, and that's what I was missing in my training, you know, is I great at telling you how to get into the poses, but really not great at knowing what muscle action was involved. And so that's changed hugely for me now.
Ooh, I love that it's changed for you, Anna. Great. Anything else? Anything else? Laura?
Yep, twofold. One, for my yoga, it's gotten me super clear and staying on task with what I'm teaching. I don't go down the rabbit hole, which just, it keeps everybody's nervous system really calm. Like that we're focusing on this. And it keeps me coming back when I see other things. Nope, we're working on this week. As far as manual, like what everybody else has shared, it's what muscles are, and with yoga too, what muscles are doing the job or not doing the job of moving that joint.
Yeah.
And that also, it's the same. It's clarity. It zeroes it in. Yeah. Jeez.
You got clarity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if I can just add, for the shoulder joint in particular, I think because it's such a shallow ball and socket joint, so really understanding, you know, what its nature is and what's involved in its sort of 360 movement. Like I just think it's even more important than the hip joint, understanding it well.
Look at Murph, he's like sneaking in on the corner there. I didn't realize that's how he was doing.
He's cute. Keep him there.
He's so cute, isn't he? He's a total wreck, just like I like him. Yeah, I love everything that you guys have shared. And I would add one more piece. So at this juncture in my clinical career, I only do shots method. So no longer am I doing movement classes, massage therapy, general massage, like, and I love all of that. I'm not throwing shade by any means, but I'm really niched at the moment, right? And have been for quite some time. So I'm only doing shots method work with clients. And here's what I think about joint action. When clients come in for shots method work, they're typically in pain. And they've been in pain for a while. Their pain's unresolved for a while. They're confused. Some of them are really afraid, whether they admit it or not, openly. You know, pain can make you feel like this is how the story ends. And so, as you were all mentioning, the clarity around knowing where I get to work and the clarity around how the body's designed so that I can quickly return it there is really needed in those instances, right? When folks are like, this might be the last practitioner I go to before I give up, right? So, and also they've got complex issues. It's really complicated. It's been there a long time. The compensatory patterns have stacked. They're loaded with all kinds of data that I've got to, you know, sift through to try to figure out like what is actually causing the problem. And is this problem a result of the last problem that didn't get resolved? So for me, in that moment of like thinking through all the data that they're giving me and mining it for the gold, I've also got to keep it clear and simple for me. So if I go back to, this is how the body's designed, this is the action that happens at that joint, these are the muscles that do that action, are they doing it? Boom, now I've got a treatment plan. Doesn't mean that we ignore everything that they say in the subjective part of your intake. In fact, quite the opposite. And my mastery practitioners, you all know that because we go through SOAP charting it with a lot of detail. But just as far as putting the plan of action together, like what am I going to do after I get all the information? What am I going to do? The doing is based on the body's design. So I got to know that the doing isn't based on the injury that they sustained, believe it or not. Seems like it would be, but I don't want to address the injury. I want to address the body's design to get it back to where it was before the injury. Sounds like it's the same thing. It's really a different focal point though. It's really a different focal point. So anyway, we'll go over SOAP charting with more detail in a future Tuesday training. For today, I really want to talk about this shoulder that Anna says is more important than the hips. I don't know if I agree with you, Anna. I'm pretty sacrum centric, but I'll go with you for today on shoulder rotation at least. You got me on that. Okay. So as we've mentioned last week, shoulder joint is a 360 rotation joint, just like the hips, with the very deep difference of its shallowness, as you pointed out, Anna, and it's not weight bearing. So it's shallow and not weight bearing. Like, what the heck? How is this guy even hanging on? With Murph, I'm not even clear. So, you know, how does that translate into a human body with a lot of stabilization, a lot of muscle activity? And as we talked about last week, there's more joints and stabilization in those joints in the shoulder girdle that are not present in the hip. If you want to know about that, please go back and watch last week's shoulder training, because it was pretty awesome. In rotation, though, there's some confusion, I think, in practitioner land around not only its design, but what do I do about it? So for example, the rotator cuff, I love it when clients come in and they call it the rotator cup. Cute, the rotator cup. It's the rotator cuff because it is positioned like a cuff around the shoulder. And in my experience, we don't always know what muscles make up the rotator cuff. So pop quiz, what are the muscles that make up the rotator cuff? And do you know the acronym to help get you started? Do you guys know the acronym for the rotator cuff muscles?
Yep.
Go ahead, Valerie, what is it?
Supraspinatus, infraspinatus.
Wait. The acronym first. The acronym first.
Sits.
SITS, S-I-T-S. Now, important to not be confused with sit bones, little s, capital I, capital T, no S at the end. So just like the Latin and the names of the muscles, sometimes concepts repeat themselves in the body. If you know them, you know them. And if you don't know them, they're confusing. If you're finding yourself confused, great, give yourself a pause and dive into this acronym so that you know the rotator cuff muscles and you don't confuse them for something else. Okay, so SITS, all capitals, S-I-T-S, is the acronym for the rotator cuff muscles. There's 4 of them, not 3. It's another thing I've heard. The rotator cuff, you know, the 3 muscles of the rotator cuff. No, honey, it's 4 muscles and it's the rotator cuff. Cool, great. Okay, Val, so give them to us.
Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres, and subscap.
Great. Which teres?
Major.
Valerie, I love you for pausing, and thank you for letting me hot seat you. I'm not gonna press you. That's the other place where once we do know the rotator cuff, and by the way, you guys, just like me, like this is my story right here. That's why I'm walking you through it, because I remember the feeling of that pit in my stomach of like, oh shit, I don't know this. If you don't know it, then how can you help? It's not about your ego and whether you know it, it's whether or not you can help somebody. So let's just rub that away for a second. Thank you, Lori, for putting that in the chat. Here's the gem. It is, as you said, Val, exactly, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscap. Teres minor, what's that, Valerie?
I got it backwards then.
A lot of people do, and here's why. And I get it. Teres major, teres minor. Remember that like repeating concept in the body? Like, well, I don't know which teres is it. So just like you, Val, I used to say teres. You know, teres.
Right.
Okay, cool. Which is fine if I'm like in a trivial pursuit question, but if I'm actually working with a client and I don't know which teres it is, how can I actually work on it? So like we get to press ourselves and we get to know this. So teres minor is the teres in the rotator cuff. It's one of the sits. Teres major is the mini-me of the lat. They're really close. They're even in the same proximity, even more tempting to get them confused. But the action of them is wildly different. Teres minor does lateral rotation in the rotator cuff. Teres major works with the lat dorsi, which is the main muscle of extension. Yes, exactly. And then it also can do a little bit of lateral rotation too, as it's synergist. Let's not get too far down the line. Here's what we want to know. Let's go back to our beginning. We're working with right now the rotator cuff. Notice if you let yourself just now, as you're learning, notice if you let yourself get way harried down the line and go, oh shit. I used to do that all the time. Don't do that. Just take yourself back to what you know. Let your nervous system, I know, Anna, right? Just like me. Go back to, and Lori, awesome. go back to, okay, what am I on right now? What am I on right now? It's the same way of thinking through a treatment plan. Okay, wait, what am I on right now? What am I on right now? What am I on? What does it do? Where is it? Is it working? Great. So right now we're on rotator cuff. 4 muscles, sits to help you remember. The names of them, Valerie, again.
Spinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis.
Exactly. And they are roughly all on the scapula. Supraspinatus is above the spine. Infraspinatus is below the spine. Teres minor is about right here, kind of like in that little inlet, I call it, on the lateral side of the scapula. And subscap is in there, like in the armpit, in there. Sub, under, like subterranean, submarine, under the scapula, between the scapula and the rib cage. Can't get to them in here, right? Okay.
Gina, just a question. You said the supraspinatus was above the spine? It's
Yes.
above the spine.
Super, like superior.
No, but I mean, it's the spine part that I'm asking for
sorry.
clarification.
Yeah,
Spine of the-
spine of the scapula.
Ah,
Yep, spine of the.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. You're welcome, of course. Right, so supra is above, infra is below, the spine is that protrusion in the center, and you can feel it on your own. Actually, you can palpate that really pretty readily. Great, so supra, infra, and teres and subscap all do rotation. So those are the rotators, not the cup, but the rotators of the scapula. Shoulder, scapula, shoulder, okay? Depending on where they're attached and what they do. Mostly shoulder, but they're attached on the scapula. Shoulder muscles, okay?
That attach on the scapula.
Got it.
What exactly is the shoulder? Because I've heard it, because you've got that joint and you've got the scapula and the humerus coming together. And I've heard it called like the shoulder girdle. Like, what is the shoulder?
Were you here last week, Anna?
I certainly was.
Okay, this is good review then. It's good review. So
No, but like the term shoulder.
yeah, well, it's the similarity that we drew last week was, what's the hip? Is it when you put your hand here on your hip, on top of your iliac crest, or is it actually the ball and socket joint, or is it the whole pelvis? What's the hip? It depends. So my invitation for us as practitioners is to be open when your clients say what they say, like, and not get to like them, needing them to be the anatomist, for example. And when you're speaking, you can say shoulder, but what do you mean? Do you mean the scapula? Do you mean the glenohumeral joint? Do you mean the whole girdle, which are these 3 bones that we talked about? Three joints. Remember, we talked about the three joints and the 2 bones. Okay. All right. So actually, I wouldn't count the humerus in the shoulder except for the shoulder joint. So I would probably say it's three joints and 3 bones. Let me think. Would I say that? Yeah, I would. Just like the pelvis, actually. I've never heard it that way, but I would call it that way and be like, yeah, that's anatomically accurate. We usually consider the humerus the arm, which is not this is why I was pausing. In the shoulder, girdle, clavicle, scapula, humerus, as it makes up the glenohumeral joint. So 3 bones, 3 joints. In the pelvis, though, we don't count the femur. 3 bones, 3 joints in the pelvis. Both coxa and the sacrum. We don't count the appendage like I just did when I said shoulder. So again, how are you describing it? What do you mean when you say shoulder? So when we're talking rotator cuff, they are doing rotation of this joint, of the glenohumeral joint, and they are all on the scapula. So sometimes confused with scapular action. They don't do scapular action, they do shoulder action. Okay, now that we've got that clear, what is the action that the rotator cuff muscles do?
Okay.
Hey, Valerie, you want to mute? What is the action that the rotator cuff muscles do?
They help with lateral rotation.
Of
The shoulder joint. The shoulder joint of the
okay.
this
Lateral rotation of the shoulder joint.
of the
Great.
shoulder joint. Yeah, sorry. I was like, what do you mean what of? Yeah, of course.
Not the scapula, because some people
Right.
mistakenly
No,
say that
of
the
the
scapula
shoulder
rotate,
joint.
they don't rotate. Right.
Yeah.
So shoulder joint. So lateral rotation.
Uh-huh.
Anything else?
And they also stabilize. There's stabilizers
Okay.
of
Anything else?
the humerus into the
The ball into the socket.
ball into the socket. They
Mhm.
stabilize too.
Anything else? Lateral rotation, stabilization, anything
Oh.
else?
They do medial subscap does medial.
Mhm.
They do medial too.
Right.
Medial and lateral.
Right. They do the rotation. They do the medial and the lateral rotation of the
Mm.
shoulder joint. Yes, and they stabilize. So remember we said at the beginning, its design is pretty precarious. How does this appendage stay on the torso? It's literally perpendicular to the earth. What the hey? Through muscles that stabilize. Through muscles that stabilize, which happen to be largely the rotator cuff. Rotator, medial and lateral, cuff, hold on. Cuff the humerus to the torso at the glenohumeral joint. Okay, so right there, actually, did any ahas or awareness come up? Any clarity come up for you? I know you guys are writing down the data. However, now that you know more clearly what the rotator cuff is, as a practitioner, does it open up something for you? I want it to, so I'm asking.
I guess it seems to be such a common place for injury.
Right, Anna.
Lots of people come in with, they've been diagnosed, I don't know by whom, but my rotator cuff. And I wonder, is it really your rotator cuff? But anyway, it's a common thing that people come in with.
For real. So we get to know this because it's common. So interestingly, when folks come in with a rotator cuff injury, are you now thinking, please say yes, are you now thinking which muscle?
All the time, and they don't
Right.
know.
They have no idea. So if
But
they don't,
Gina, shouldn't we be thinking, because we know that 80% of the pain originates somewhere else. So how do you, I don't know that I would do that. You guys are manual practitioners, so you're trained, but as a yoga teacher, I don't know, maybe I would maybe I'd look at the sacrum. I mean, I'm kidding, but you know what I'm saying?
yeah, let me speak into that, Anna. So first of all, there's no difference between a manual and a movement practitioner when it comes to finding the source of the injury. That's literally what we're here for. So a manual practitioner doesn't have a different, way of working, resolving pain than you do. Quite the opposite. That's why I'm here. Literally why I'm here on the planet. I'm sure of it. Okay, so just know that. Don't disqualify yourself because of your title. We need to stop doing that. Really, I want us to stop doing that. And you're correct. 80 to 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. So you have a 10 to 20% chance of resolving someone's problem permanently by heading towards the symptoms. That's a law of the body anywhere. And the shoulders and the knees are the two joints where it is most likely to be at the source of pain. Not 100% likely, more likely, shoulders and knees, which takes us back to the question I put on the table for all of us. When a client comes in and says they have an injured rotator cuff, it's been diagnosed. People don't make that up the way they make up saying, oh, I think I herniated a disc. People will say that self-diagnosing WebMD online, they rarely say, I injured my rotator cuff. It's not as common as self-diagnosing a herniated disc, which typically means it's been diagnosed by someone who took a scan or ultrasound or however they found that to be the case. So we know that there's an injury in the rotator cuff in one of those four muscles, one or more of those four muscles. We already know that coming in, and we know that the source of that injury may not have generated in the shoulder. Yep, so we follow the laws of the body, and we know there's an injury there. So just sticking with we know there's an injury there, when we know that the rotator cuff is four muscles and the client does not know which muscle was injured, doesn't that change our approach to finding out which muscle is injured? When someone tells you that they've torn a hamstring, you can see it. There's usually a little bubble or a contusion, depending on the state of their tear. They can point to it. They know it's the hamstring. Even though we know that there's 3 hamstrings, we know where it is. And all of the hamstrings largely do the same activity. Minor nuances to the same action, but not in the rotator cuff. 1 does medial, 3 do lateral. Which one? Which direction? If I need to balance the lever system, I got to know which direction's impeded. So we've talked about the lever system in the last few weeks. Both sides of the joint are involved when there's movement. One side is contracting, the other side is lengthening. So if the rotator cuff is injured, either lateral rotation is impeded or medial rotation is impeded. Now let's just go back 1 step. In the sits muscles, the 4 muscles of the rotator cuff, 3 of them do lateral rotation and only 1 does medial rotation. Which 3 do lateral? Valerie, you want to
So the 3 that do lateral are supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and Teres minor.
Exactly. Thank you. So they're back here. Oh, gosh. So supra, infra, and teres. They're back here. They're attached here, and they're pulling and creating.
Oh, they're going this way.
Yep, they're creating lateral rotation. So you're looking at this backside, you're creating lateral rotation. Great. And the big guy under here that lines the underside, the submarine side of the scapula, does medial rotation. So when he contracts, also connects at near the same space. When he contracts, pulls on the humerus, medial rotation, medial rotation. Okay. Just because of the odds in the 3-to-1 ratio here, there's a greater chance that it's one of the lateral rotators of the rotator cuff that has been injured when a client comes in and says, I had rotator cuff surgery, I tore my rotator cuff, I this, I that. Rotator cuff, rotator cuff. Okay, when the sentence phrase ends with rotator cuff, there's a 3-to-1 odd that it's a lateral versus a medial. And bigly important, because of all of the stabilization that those muscles do to keep this appendage on the torso, that's typically where the injury happens. In the stabilizing, not stabilizing, or not being stable when motion happens. So it's the same muscles that do lateral and medial rotation and stabilize. It's they're not stabilizing that makes the medial and lateral rotation precarious. Rotator cuff muscles do stabilization of the humerus under the torso and lateral and medial rotation of the shoulder joint. When a rotator cuff injury is present, it's more often one of the muscles that does lateral rotation, which also stabilizes, And it's not that the lateral rotation was too severe or the medial rotation was too strong. It's that the stabilization wasn't present when medial and lateral rotation was asked for. Which is another way of figuring out what's the problem. What do I need to solve? Do I need to solve medial and lateral rotation? No, I need to solve stabilizing.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and oftentimes when folks go through physical therapy, for example, no dig on any type of modality here, we are all needed desperately sometimes. Oftentimes physical therapy will take someone through rotator cuff rehab by way of medial and lateral rotation. Great. Sometimes, luckily, they even do stabilizing. Awesome. The missing piece and why that physical therapy is not conclusive at the end of their physical therapy track is because in order to stabilize and strengthen, you must be in alignment first. We know the shots, one of the shots method formulas is alignment, strength, function. I can't have someone with protracted scapula. So don't let me confuse you, because scapular action is different than shoulder action. But I can't have this glenohumeral joint in this position, and I got to do it on my body instead of Murph's because his scapula are bolted. If my alignment looks really common in human, protracted scapula, which a lot of us are in all the time, and I have a rotator cuff injury that I'm rehabbing, even if I've identified the muscle, I can't go into strengthening that muscle in rotation with a protracted scapula. It's not aligned. This joint's not aligned when my scapula are protracted. How am I going to get full strength back in that muscle? Assuming I've even identified the muscle, which is where we started our treatment plan in this example. First, you get to figure out what the muscle is, what it's not doing, and return it to its optimal function through alignment and strength. But what we often miss, personal trainers do this, physical therapists do this as well. It's just the way they're trained. There's you know, sometimes it's exactly the modality that's needed, but oftentimes they'll go into function first. And without alignment, the function's distorted. You can't get full contraction in a muscle. The lever system can't operate to its maximum capacity unless it's aligned. Go ahead, Anna.
Doesn't that take you down the rabbit hole, though? You know, I love Lori's term. She refers to that all the time, going down the rabbit hole. But if now the problem is the scapula is protracted, so, and you've got to go for the alignment of the spine, certainly the proper alignment of the scapula, but what has taken the scapula into that permanent almost protractions, because you have to deal with that before you deal with the rotator cuff. So how does this work?
No. First of all, it's never permanent because the body's constantly changing. It's habitual, but not permanent.
Okay.
And interestingly, Anna, that's the answer to your question earlier, that you wouldn't look in the shoulder. I'm not going to go after tons of lateral rotation to strengthen one of the sits muscles when the reason it tore in the first place is because there was a misalignment when that action took place. I'm going to go back to the alignment. Once I get the shoulder into this position, it's already naturally strengthening because it's aligned. I've already increased the strength through the alignment. And I can't add weight-bearing strength without alignment and completely avoid injury. It's not possible. It's like functionally not possible. If they're out of alignment and they're weight-bearing, even their own body weight, think plank, chaturanga, upward dog. If their shoulders are out of alignment when they're weight-bearing, they are headed into injury. Whether they reach it or not is up to the body in that moment. But they're not headed towards safety, they're headed towards injury. Sometimes that's how rotator cuffs get torn. then they're out of the yoga game, they're into physical therapy, they may end up in surgery, and then they go back to yoga, but they never fix the alignment. The function's been distorted the whole time, and that's how the thing tore in the first place. Because we know that the rotator cuff has so much significance into stabilizing the shoulder joint because of its shallow design and the perpendicular orientation of the humerus to the earth, which has gravity constantly pulling down on it.
This makes it so much easier.
Oh, yes, I know. That's exactly what I want for you all to work that way. Easy peasy, baby. Lots of solutions. Right. So can you imagine if someone comes in post physical therapy, their shoulder's still giving them, issues, they're feeling a little crunchy and my right and left aren't the same, and you're just working lateral and medial rotation. Like Groundhog's Day for both of y'all. And not even how the whole thing started in the first place. Because we're on the action, the phasic action of this muscle, which is exactly where I asked you to go, but not how it got injured. Nothing gets injured by doing what it's designed to do. A rotator cuff's not going to spontaneously combust because of medial rotation. It's designed to do that. But if it's incorrect medial rotation, or if it's not stable while it's medially or laterally rotating, there could be an injury. And that's largely alignment. Got it? Okay, making super sense how you can work so easy and make great solutions. Okay,
But now I'm at, okay, there is habitual protraction, and I would say, I'm going to maybe exaggerate, but I'm going to say 80% of the people I see, probably more, have got that protraction. So if it's habitual, how do you go ahead, Valerie?
Not to mention medially rotated.
right. Could be medially rotated and protracted scapula. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Anna, do you see how important your work is? Yeah. So we're not going to be like, well, fuck it. They're all just habitually like that. No, we're like, holy crap, they're all like that. They're all headed towards rotator cuff injuries on my clock. You better intervene. Stop it from happening. So how would you do that? That's the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you know needs to happen? Let's go back to the design of the body. What needs to happen to head them towards optimal function and away from potential injury? What does the body need?
Alignment
Of?
well,
This
everything, but the scapula and the head, all of it, really.
Great.
Because
So if you need,
if they're not sitting properly, the rest of it's not going to come together.
Right,
so
before
let's,
curve.
yep. So let's walk this through. If they need alignment of the scapula, what needs to happen before they can have alignment of the scapula?
They need to. So I'm thinking, okay, I almost always start in a chest opener, and I'm thinking, I didn't know this, but that's a really good thing.
Okay, so instead of adding the treatment plan, let's just work with the function just for now, right?
Opening across the chest.
No. What does the scapula need to be aligned?
Not to be protracted. Well, I still want to go back to the spine, but you want it not protracted for one.
So not protracted. So you want the scapula to be aligned in neutral. And what did the scapula need in order to stay aligned in neutral, Valerie?
Strength with the muscles that are holding the scapula back for one.
Yeah, but before that, what comes before strength? We just talked about the formula.
The alignment.
Alignment of what?
The spine.
Great. So, and the spine is part of, elaborate on that.
The axial,
Or
part of the axial skeleton.
The axial skeleton. And where does the alignment of the axial skeleton start? At the head?
at the spine.
I'm gonna say at the bottom,
Bottom of what?
at the sternum.
Sits bones.
Yeah, the
Apex.
Okay, it's either gonna start
We'll
at
just
the
throw
top
them
or
all
the
out there.
bottom.
I just
Get 'em
want to
a
get back to the beginning, right back to the apex. I'm with you, Lori.
Well, that's why I said at the bottom, but the sternum, that's right.
Yeah, when I'm sitting in my apex and my four curves are aligned, I don't have to necessarily work on this happening. They're right there. My shoulder, my scapula are right there. Like I'm sitting on my apex right now and I'm not here. It's really hard to sit on my apex and go here. Like I can't do both.
But
Align-
Dana's pointing to the sternum. She's not pointing to the,
What's this bone, Anna?
sorry, sacrum. I meant to say sacrum,
That's-
sacrum.
Yep, that's why I didn't catch
I
it.
meant to say sacrum all along when I was saying sternum.
Okay, good. You got it. Sacrum. Right. Hi, Sylvia. Glad that you're here. Right. So we've now identified that we need to create alignment here to restore the function of the rotator cuff or to prevent injury. And in order for this to be aligned, it needs to have stable spine, which starts from the sacrum. Right. So Anna, all your people, you're like 80% of them. Holy smoke, it's all habitual. Their scapula are all protracted. Their rotator cuffs are all in the warning zone. What do I do? The answer is, what do you do?
Yeah, so spinal alignment starting at the sacrum.
You got it. Now, question for you.
Not for me. I've answered.
Oh
it.
yeah, I'm gonna question for you. Okay, we'll pose the question to the group then. So nothing wrong with what you've been doing. We're updating, okay? Think about this. You said, oh, instinctively, I'm doing heart openers, chest openers. And now that we're really clear on the function, what would a chest opener do if the sacrum was not aligned? If the keystone's not aligned, what would a chest opener do?
Exacerbate. It would exacerbate certainly the thoracic curve. Well, it would exacerbate all the curves, actually.
Yeah, so awesome. So look at this. I'm gonna do my best. I can't give it to you with Murph because his spine is bolted. Let's just see if you can see me. All right. So if I have my tail tucked under, can you guys hear me? Does the microphone pick me up? Okay. If I have my tail tucked under, we know that what that's going to do to my thoracic spine is increase the curve.
Yes.
And now I have protracted scapula. Great. If this is still here, the spine and the sacrum are still doing what they do, and I'm going to do a shoulder opener. Am I going to open the chest and the shoulder?
Not really.
No,
Somewhat.
because I'm starting from medial rotation of the humerus and protracted scapula, and now I'm putting more torque on that humerus to go back, probably how the rotator cuff got injured in the first place.
Ah, interesting.
Because that's the same position in yoga, and this is not just yoga, guys, right? It's any movement, right? This is the same position for upward dog, downward dog, cobra, or chaturanga, plank, right? Think of all that force that's on that glenohumeral joint with this alignment not being there because we haven't actually addressed the sacrum and the shoulders need for the balance of that axial skeleton first. We can be here in Cobra and say, bring your shoulder blades together. That's all we've created, right? That's a lot of torque on those muscles that do stabilization of this joint. A lot of torque. Now, if you happen to add rotation into that joint at the same time, that's probably where the injury happened, right? I'm not aligned. I'm here and I'm doing lateral rotation. I can't even laterally rotate. My humerus is, forced into the opposite position of where I'm trying to go. If I want to do lateral rotation, it looks like this.
That's what we usually see.
What's that, Valerie?
That's what you usually see. when they're in that position. That's like, oh,
Right, that's not lateral rotation. So
No.
think about it, you know, in the yoga classes where they do the shoulder strap exercise, which we do also in our method for different reasons, but lots of people use the same tools for things. Imagine that all your students are sitting. Pilates, same thing. Personal training, same thing. They use, you know, weighted bars over them. So here we are seated, sacrum tucked under, thoracic cavity increased. I'm doing a shoulder rotation. I mean, I don't know about you, do it in your body. It's remarkably painful. I'm not even bearing weight right now. And
Yeah,
yet we do it. What, Valerie?
my, I'll come out for a minute. Yeah, my posture sucks because I'm hunched on a sofa that's not mine, and try to move your arm back and I'm in lousy posture. And it's very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. That's without weight bearing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and think about this, guys. When folks are in a movement experience, are they usually moving faster or slower?
Faster.
Right. So now they're going to compensate, move around those muscles, pull on Golgi tendon organs, whatever. And yeah, they're going to have an injury. 5 days of yoga, Pilates, personal training, bench pressing, any upper body work can really play havoc on the rotator cuff, not because the rotator cuff's a problem, because our alignment going into the function of that joint is not established.
Okay, but I'm gonna just hard press here.
Great.
I get it. Everything you're saying makes total sense. However, in a class, even if it was a class dedicated, like Lori said, she's, you know, choosing one joint and going there. But if it was a class that was geared to what we've done so far, you know, apex sitting or standing in proper alignment, right? Because those are the two things we've really focused on. I go back to the habitual thing, you know, they're going to be watching a movie, they're going to be working on their computer. I mean, how do you ever get to the point unless you can drill it into their mental awareness so that they be aware? Like, it's not like you can strap the scapula into a neutral position. Like, I wish there was something else, like, if you really work on the latissimus dorsi, you know, then they're going to stay there forever. I don't know.
What's your question?
How do you keep them there?
Keep what? Keep who where?
How do you keep the shoulders in their proper alignment?
You have to strengthen them there.
The scapula.
You have to strengthen. In order to keep the body in alignment, it must be strengthened. Can't be strengthened unless it's aligned first.
Right. So I guess I don't know how to do that. Anybody else weigh in?
You don't know how to do that?
I don't know how to keep them there.
Keep
like-
what where?
I don't know how to have them gain that strength that's necessary to keep the scapula from protracting.
Okay,
In other
so
words, how do you keep them in alignment and strengthen them to keep that alignment? Is that
That's the question. Yes.
Okay. Because that's kind of, yeah, it's what I thought it was.
yeah, that's the beginning movement. I'm so glad you guys are eager for next month's training, because that's exactly what we're covering in Mastery, alignment in movement.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I'm still
Question-
working on getting all these muscles and movements.
Oh, next month is going to be so fun. Okay, question for you guys in general. Generally speaking, don't think about anything in particular. Generally speaking, body's design. Let's go back to what you know. Let's let your nervous system have a party. Generally speaking, how does a muscle strengthen?
Through movement.
What kind of
Repet-
Contracting.
contracting?
Yes.
A muscle strengthens by contracting it. So we've got to know the action that muscle does, and we've got to take it into that action. Action's always contraction. It's not stretch. Great. And we know our formula, Schatz's method formula, alignment, strength, function. I must align you first, target the muscle I want to strengthen, and make it do its job, which is contraction.
Can you repeat that?
Sure thing. The way to strengthen a muscle is by contracting its fibers. And we
Right.
know in the Schatz's method that in order to strengthen a muscle fully, the body must be aligned first.
Right.
Alignment, strength, function. So if I want to strengthen any part of the body, I must put the body in alignment, which you've been taught how to do. I must put the body and all the joints in neutral alignment, target the muscle I'm wanting to strengthen,
Target.
know its action, and put it through its action so that it strengthens. Alignment, strength, function. Our functional anatomy masterclass is the golden ticket for that formula. So generally, I didn't make this up, right? I didn't make up the strengthening part. Generally speaking, the way we strengthen a muscle is by contracting it. And we know here that in order for it to contract to its full potential and gain strength, it must be aligned. And for mastery practitioners, you know that that means repatterning must take place. And repatterning is a nervous system activity. You can't move fast and make that happen. You'll miss it. So Anna, the answer to your question is, how do you do it? Through the formula, alignment, strength, function. Target the muscle that you want to strengthen, make it do its action, and make sure you go slow enough that there's repatterning in the brain, and that's how it becomes permanent.
So how many times do you have to do that to get that?
Until they're strong. Until they're strong. Here's what I'll tell you. The body is designed this way, so it won't be that long.
Okay.
The body is designed this way. When you take the body back, this is a perfect way to wrap up today, loves. When you take the body back to the way it's designed, there will be no pain. The way the body is designed is the largest pattern we have. Sometimes we're off track and we forget that. And then returning it there is like clicking into home again. That's why we spend so much time knowing the anatomy, not so that we can recite muscle names, but so that we can know where we're headed back to the design. And then your clients will be pain-free. Good? Got it? Good wrap up? Okay. I loved ending on that note. The body's design. This design is so fabulous. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, my loves, I appreciate so much you being here and all of your contribution, and this juicy conversation makes me feel like there was purpose for me in this last hour. Like I love pouring into you in this way. So if there's any, requests of any particular thing you want us to talk about, please bring it to me. I would love to direct the conversation at what your questions are. And if not, you know me, I've always got a million things to talk about when it comes to the body. So I will be here every Tuesday to continue to support you, whether you're a manual or movement practitioner, it's the same jam. And with one exception, next Tuesday, I will not be here. So you get to watch a replay next Tuesday on something delicious. Maybe it's other joint activities. We did all joint function for the entire month so far. So you'll have 5 replays you can dive back into and then recraft what you're doing with your clients and see all the smiles on their faces as you serve them with superior technique and skill. Love it. Okay, my loves, thank you so much for being here today. I'll see you guys 2 weeks from today, live, right? Until then, keep doing amazing work in the world. Thank you. Bye.